Thank you, John. As John said, I am currently an intern with the Washington Department of Transportation, working in their habitat connectivity branch. Over the past year, I have been learning and analyzing how animals interact with linear infrastructure, in particular, roads. As our infrastructure demands grow, habitat loss and fragmentation are inevitable. When available habitat shrinks and ecosystems become less connected, animals are faced with complex challenges. One of the most devastating anthropogenic disturbances in modern times has been the expansion of road networks. And I wanted to set the scene with this quote from Richard T.T. Foreman, who is known as essentially the father of road ecology. Roads appear as major conspicuous objects in aerial views and photographs, and their ecological effects spread through the landscape. Few environmental scientists, from population ecologists to stream or landscape ecologists, recognize the sleeping giant, road ecology. This major frontier and its applications to planning, conservation, management, design, and policy are great challenges for science and society. The most widely observed effect of roads on wildlife are in the form of animal-vehicle collisions. The Washington Department of Transportation keeps track of animals hit on Washington state highways in our wildlife carcass removal database. WashDOT's maintenance department is responsible for removing carcasses from Washington state highways. Collisions with large mammals, such as deer and elk, are well documented and researched in the literature. Less is known about wildlife collisions involving avian species. I decided to explore the relationship between raptors and roads. Raptors, or known as birds of prey, utilize roads for a number of reasons. Scavengers, such as eagles and hawks, are attracted to roadkill sites. Eagles and vultures are attracted to roadkill sites. Hawks and owls use medians and the open spaces that roads provide to hunt rodents and other small mammals. Another reason I decided to focus on raptors was due to their place in the ecosystem. Raptors are indicator species, meaning you can tell how an ecosystem is faring by studying the overall fitness of raptors. They occupy a high trophic level, are long-lived, widespread, and are susceptible to changes in their environments. In McClure et al.'s State of the World's Raptor Populations paper, published in 2018, they found that 52% of the raptor species have declining populations in the world, and 18% of raptors are threatened with extinction. These declining raptor populations are chiefly due to land being developed for agriculture and forests being logged. Here in Washington state, the northern spotted owl is listed as state endangered and federally threatened, and the Ferruginous hawk is also listed as state threatened. For my thesis, I analyzed all raptor records in the carcass removal database from 2015 to 2020. My overarching research questions were, where are raptors being hit and killed due to vehicle collisions on Washington state highways? Secondly, what are the emerging temporal and spatial trends in the data? Are there hotspots that appear? Are there certain times a year in which more raptor collisions are reported? And thirdly, what is the methodology in capturing raptor data within the wildlife carcass removal database? Are there gaps in the data? And how can this data source be strengthened? To answer my first question, I searched the wildlife carcass removal database for all reported raptor collisions from 2015 to 2020. I decided to use a set of years because the data was collected in a uniform manner with the use of iPads. WashDOT's maintenance department records roadkill data in a database known as the Highway Activity Tracker. Here, they can attach photos along with their roadkill reports. I went through each raptor record to see if photos were attached to further verify each account. I then downloaded and cleaned the data in an Excel spreadsheet before uploading the data into ArcGIS Pro. From 2015 to 2020, 995 raptor collisions were reported. Owls were made up the majority of that data, accounting for 68.7% of all reported collisions. The second highest reported group were hawks, accounting for 27.9% of the data. The three other reported raptor types were bald eagles, golden eagles, and turkey vultures, collectively accounting for less than 5% of the data. And here is just a snapshot of some of the records submitted in the highway activity tracker that did have photos attached. So starting on our left, there's a red-tailed hawk, a barn owl, a saw-whet owl, a barred owl, a great horned owl along with its prey, which I find particularly interesting that they were both found together, a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned hawk, a barred owl at night, a bald eagle, and lastly, a turkey vulture. And this is my initial map that shows where the collisions were reported. So all of the pink diamonds indicate owl collisions, and the purple diamonds indicate hawk collisions. And as you can see, both hawk and owl collisions are widespread across the state. So as I started to make these initial maps, I could see spatial trends emerging in the data. And I wanted to further look at these spatial trends. So I ran a kernel density test within ArcGIS to see where hotspots were occurring. And I did find that 4 hotspots were occurring in the state. 2 of these hotspots occurred on Interstate 5, and the other 2 occurred on I-90. 239 out of the 995 strikes occurred on I-5, Washington's busiest highway. And again, here, I-5 runs north to south in Washington and I-90 east to west. And these next 4 maps are just going to show each of those hotspots, each of the 4 hotspots. They'll be outlined in blue. So this is our first hotspot just north of Vancouver in Washington. And this just shows the land cover in the area as well as those specific mile markers where the carcasses were found. The second hotspot in the state occurred north of Seattle, and it was the area in the state where the majority of the raptor collisions were reported. So here we have just another view of that area. And I wanted to focus on Skagit County because Skagit County had 142 collisions reported, which was more than any other county in the state. And here is another view that groups the raptors by type. And again, the Northwest region accounts for the majority of the raptor collisions in the state. And then moving on to the 2 hotspots that occurred on I-90. The first one occurred completely in Grant County. And here you can see that most of the land in the area is cultivated cropland. And the 4th hotspot occurred just south of Spokane, Washington. And here you can see that those collisions occurred really close together. So that is all I have for my spatial analysis. And the next thing that I wanted to look at was temporal trends within the data. And to analyze the temporal trends in the data, I focused just on owl records. Owls make up the majority of the collisions in the database, which is consistent with roadkill studies in the literature. Looking at all owl records, all owl records and grouping them by months, 51% of all owls were hit between October and January. Other studies also have found similar results. This is the time of year when young owls are dispersing and often hit as they disperse during that first winter. One caveat with the wildlife carcass removal database is how raptors are specified. Golden eagles, bald eagles, and turkey vultures are all specified as drop-down menu options, whereas hawks and owls do not offer the same level of specificity, besides the option of choosing red-tailed hawks. The majority of the raptor collisions from 2015 to 2020 are owls, but most of the records do not have photos attached or specify the owl type in the comments. But 154 individual records either have photos attached or species written in the comments. And out of those 154 individual records, there were 4 types of owls identified: barn owls, great horned owls, barred owls, and even 2 accounts of saw-whet owls, which I found particularly interesting because saw-whet owls are really small and really difficult to identify from a moving vehicle. Barn owls were recorded most often, which is consistent with roadkill studies in the literature. Barn owls hunt in open agricultural land, flying low and feeding on prey, such as rodents near the road. And this next map is just going to focus on owl collisions in the state from 2015 to 2020. The blue diamonds are owl records that did not have photos attached, whereas the gold stars indicate owl records that did have photos attached. And as you can see, there are a lot more blue diamonds, meaning a lot more records that did not have any photo identification in the database. So some of the limitations, like not all the records having photos attached, I faced from the data in the wildlife carcass removal database, led me to create a survey in which more specific raptor data could be collected. I created a survey in ArcGIS's 123 platform. Some of the features that I included in this platform were having 33 different raptor species to choose from, all of which are present in Washington at some point during the year. Another feature is that the user could describe their level of confidence they have with their raptor identification. And thirdly, this survey could be used on any road in the state. It wouldn't be limited to highways as this data set is that I'm currently using. So the data in my study was collected in an opportunistic fashion, and all of the roadkill was found from a moving vehicle. Roadkill surveys done on foot or with use of a bicycle produce studies with higher rates of found carcasses, just because it's easier to find a carcass if you're walking around in an area, whereas trying to find it from a moving vehicle. So I want to wrap up my presentation explaining a few different mitigation efforts that could lessen raptor vehicle collisions. One, removing roadkill from roads in a timely manner or moving it further away from the road. In a recent study by Hawkwatch International, they found that even moving a carcass 10 meters off of the road significantly decreases the chances of scavengers being flushed off a carcass when a car drives by. Another mitigation technique is installing fencing or diversion poles on the sides of the road. Raptors are less likely to dive down onto a road when there is a clear path at eye level to follow. And lastly, raptors benefit from crossing structures, usually installed to increase habitat connectivity for larger mammals. So here we have just a really quick video that shows the crossing structure, the overpass crossing structure on I-90. And not only is this great horned owl using the crossing structure, but it actually lands on the camera itself. So in conclusion, animal collisions only tell part of the story in the realm of road ecology. There is so much more to learn about the complex relationship between animals and roads. The results of my spatial analysis could lead to more research in those 4 hotspot locations in the state. I hope that this work will increase awareness of raptor vehicle collisions. And with that, I want to thank WashDOT, and in particular, my boss, Glenn Kalis, for his support and passion for road ecology. Thank you to Evergreen, the MES program, and my thesis reader, John Withy. And thank you all so much for coming to my presentation. And with that, I will open it up to any questions you may have.